Thank you all for being here. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's roundtable on the implications and applications of AI in B2B marketing. This roundtable is brought to you by Renewed, the open network of specialized subscription, membership, and event professionals. My name is Sue Stevens, and I'm the Executive Director for Renewed Europe, and I'll be moderating today's event. Please keep yourself on mute to minimize background noise. Do turn your videos on if you can. It really does make a difference to see everyone's faces. And please put your name and company in your box so we know who's talking or asking questions throughout the session. If you have any questions for today's speakers, can you submit them throughout the you can submit them throughout the presentation and at the end during Q&A session by using the chat function. After the presentation, you'll have access to the recording and slides, and we'll send you an email with a link once that's available. As always, we encourage you to invite your colleagues and contacts who would benefit from joining Renewed's free online community. If you want to share takeaways from today's roundtable on social media, please use the hashtag Renewed. On today's session, I would like to introduce you to our host, Helen Coetzee. Helen is the co-chair of Renewed Europe and the founder of MPG. MPG delivers consultancy, agency services, outsourced marketing, and training for specialized B2B information businesses, mostly in the UK and US. And Helen will be talking to various members of the MPG marketing team as they share their real-world experiences with AI as it pertains to marketing. So, Helen, I'm going to hand over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sue, and lovely to see some familiar faces here. Please do turn your cameras on if you can, because we're really keen for this to be a very participatory session. So we've got MPG's marketers here to chat with us today and add some kind of insights and expertise. But if you could turn your cameras on and also contribute in the chat, that would be fantastic. So on the call with me today, I have Alicia, Magda, Coetzee, and Dominic from MPG. And Dominic and I will talk you through some slides, and then we'll open up for questions throughout the session. So we'll share what we think. What we've done is we put together a slide deck with what we think is the most useful information for anyone in their kind of AI journey right now, particularly marketers or business leaders who are looking to integrate marketing, but make AI a core part of their marketing function. So that's how we've approached today's preparation. So AI implications and applications for B2B marketing is the theme, and we have a picture there very much to the theme, which is Dominic on our team, Dominic Bird, said it took him 5 minutes to create that unique image using AI. So that starts us off on the right theme in terms of time saving and creating unique content and uniquely branded imagery. So that's a good start. Please, can you add your questions and comments as you go along? Anything you want to comment on in terms of what we show you on the slides would be good. Trying to move my... Sorry. Oops. Okay, so today's session, we've split it into 5 parts in terms of what we think is useful to cover today. So we've got context. We look at 2 types of AI, generative versus analytical. The all-important skills that your marketers need to make your business AI-enabled on the marketing side, some practical applications and examples, and then what we think is coming up. And at the end, we're going to share a link for a survey that we've created to gather some insight as to how everyone is approaching AI in their marketing, what they think is coming up, what they think is important. And anyone who completes the survey will get first insights, first results. So we're going to run the survey for a while, but if you complete the survey today, we will share those first results from the participants here today with you tomorrow, along with the slides and the recording via Sue. So we'll share that survey later. In terms of the context of AI in marketing, just very quickly, why are we here talking about AI, first of all? So we have a very data-led approach to marketing, and essentially AI and data are completely intertwined. You need good data to enable AI, and you need AI, or AI is very useful in creating and monetizing your data. So for us, it's kind of a natural technological advancement to be drawn towards. And we're finding that most of our work now with clients doing outsourced campaigns and consultancy and training has definitely every single one of those projects has an AI component or AI application in it. And some of them are pretty heavily influenced now by AI and AI tools. We're seeing this not because we necessarily are the only marketers using the AI, but we're working alongside our clients where they're actually using the AI in their teams. We're helping them do that, and we're actually learning from them. So I hope we can learn a lot from you today that we can then share with the wider community. Why is AI such an important talking point? So it's become mainstream. It's basically become part of popular culture with ChatGPT, and we know that voice recognition software and generative AI around tools such as the Alexa tool you might have in your home, that kind of thing, Siri, those are all forms of AI, more traditional AI. So it has really become mainstream. But what's really kicked it into gear this year is obviously the emergence of ChatGPT. Don't have to say any more about that, but MarTech tools have been preparing their AI applications within their systems for quite some time, and suddenly they've had to really make a big deal out of those. A lot of tools such as HubSpot have had AI in them for quite some time, but they've never really talked about those that functionality until now, because now everyone has to basically talk about their AI credentials and what AI exists within their tools. So it's really shone the spotlight on that, was something that's actually been there for a while, but has now kind of exploded. We had a look at a McKinsey survey results that came out recently that is particularly focused on generative AI, and McKinsey's calling this the breakout year. I think that's a nice term. And what is really interesting, the link is at the bottom of the slide, we'll share afterwards, or someone can share it in the chat for us, is that marketing and sales is the most commonly reported area for the use of AI tools. So of all the different functions in the business, product and service development is very close second, third is service and operations, but marketing and sales definitely seems to be winning the race in terms of how up to date and advanced marketers are expected to be on in terms of AI. The other thing that jumped out at me when I looked at the report was the fact that when companies look at risk around AI, they're most concerned about inaccuracy, and this is a key theme I think that comes through in certainly in, for example, the marketing databases that we work with, and some of the more basic forms of AI. So marketing automation, machine learning, that's what, I don't know if it was in this report or somewhere else I read, that some parties are talking about traditional AI versus more advanced AI or newer AI. Traditional AI includes machine learning and automation, and actually you cannot do a lot of, you cannot put in place a lot of marketing automation or sales automation until your data is in good shape or until it's accurate. So the risk around AI is that you pay quite a lot of money for the AI tools and then you can't use them because your data is not in good order, or the AI is running on bad data, and that inaccuracy, whether it's whatever application it's for, is going to create a lot of problems for your business. So there's a lot of kind of concern around that. In terms of how we see AI, this MailChimp put out a report where they talk about AI being built in. It's not an add-on, it's built in. And that's how we see AI being used in marketing. And it's all about really driving business results. So AI is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. And every AI application that marketers should use should be used in the context of business results. What's really exciting, obviously, around this quote is when you kind of combine all the different aspects, elements of AI that are now available to marketers, it's really game changing, but it's actually more gradual than what maybe some people might kind of be fearful of. It's here, it's present, it's, AI is in our world, but it's not, it's kind of a fast revolution, a fast evolution or a slow revolution. It's not really something that we should be fearful of. We have time to learn about it and adopt it. There are a couple of health risks that we need to bring into our mindset. So particularly for business leaders, when they're thinking about what is possible in terms of AI and how quickly AI can be adopted. This is from the MailChimp report, where essentially they've highlighted the fact that a lot of marketers actually lack the bandwidth to really set themselves up well. So it's a bit chicken and egg. We need to automate our systems and processes to give ourselves more time to do more important, valuable work. And until those systems and processes are automated, a marketer can't really make that leap into that next kind of level of value to the business, but that takes time. So their time is distracted by just running the campaigns, and then they don't have time for automation, setting up the automations, etc., which includes AI adoption. The other health risk is around siloed data not joined up, and a lack of integrations. If you don't have data that's well set up and the integrations between your systems aren't well set up, then, and you've got an average of 5 systems in your stack, then AI just can't really be deployed in any meaningful way. So there's a lot there that probably still needs to be done and sorted out. And the last thing to say in terms of this contextual piece, or maybe a couple more things, is really at the moment, we're seeing AI's benefits about doing things faster, saving some money, getting better results, very broadly speaking. We'll give some examples of that later on. And this is the current state of AI. We ran a roundtable for marketing leaders recently. We looked at the current state of AI in marketing, and they gave us some input. We had 20 marketing leaders in a room from companies like yours. And this is what they told us. They said they're in the early stages of adoption. This was back in July, to be fair, so probably more advanced now. Early stages of adoption. They're trying to understand what's available right now. They're using it to augment existing processes mostly rather than replace them. So far, it seems like time saving is the biggest benefit. And there is some internal resistance, especially in the very large businesses with very high profile, brands, where there's a lot of resistance from the legal teams for the marketers to even use AI. So one might say there's an opportunity for the smaller independent businesses to overtake the bigger businesses because they are allowed to use these tools, where the bigger businesses are not allowing their marketers to use tools that aren't approved, and there's a lot of risk aversion. So that's the first part of our kind of contextualizing AI within marketing at a kind of a high strategic level. I don't know if anyone has anything to contribute or add or questions to ask before we move forward. No? Okay, we'll move on then. So I'm going to hand over to Dom, who's going to talk through how we see AI. I don't know if this is a formalized view, but we generally divide AI tools into generative tools and analytical tools. And Dom's going to talk through some examples of tools that we've used and kind of we're confident are worth looking at and exploring. So Dom, handing over to you.
Thanks, Helen. So yeah, as Helen's talking about, alluding to, AI is obviously everywhere at the moment. It seems like every platform, every company is trying to figure out how AI is going to fit into what they offer, which obviously gives a lot of benefits to us because it's improving these platforms that we use, it's improving these tools that we have access to. But because there's so much, we think it's useful to categorize it all in a certain way so we can make some sense of it, make some sense of where these applications are and how we can make use of them. So broadly speaking, we think the best two ways to think about it is the generative side, which is what's really capturing the headlines at the moment. So this is where you give a prompt or you give some data or you give something to an AI tool and it generates something for you in response. And it's something very tangible. You can see it, you can understand it. But then on the other side, we've got the stuff that happens more in the background. So we classify this as more sort of analytical side of things. And these are things that may not be as obvious to us, but they still are happening. They still are developing as well critically as this sort of interest and investment goes into AI. Yes, we've got all these exciting generative tools, but we have also got stuff happening in the background as well in these tools that is important to be aware of. So we wanted to go into some specific examples of these just to frame this. So on the generative side, obviously we've got things like we said, ChatGPT, which I'm sure we're all very familiar with by now, which is a large language model, which is something where we prompt it in text and then it gives us something in return in text. And it's very, very capable at that. So it can do things like produce copy, it can help us write code, it can help us write formulas. We can give it copy, all of that, and ask it to improve it, ask it to shorten things, interpret it. I'm sure we've all played around with it and got a sense of just how capable and impressive it is. And then obviously in a similar mold, we've got things like Google Bard and Bing AI, which are similar to that, but integrated into search engines, and probably the future of search in a lot of senses, but we'll come back to that. Another application is within Google Analytics 4, which is something that Google recently made their default analytics property. And this is something called predictive audiences, where Google looks at the people who we have visiting our websites and looks at lots of little different signals and data points to predict people who are more likely to take an action, such as purchasing something. And then what we can do is we can target people who have those, who fall into that category. And obviously, because they're more likely to convert, our marketing efforts are more effective. Another thing which I think people are probably quite familiar with is text to image. So when we provide a prompt and we get an image back, examples of that are things like Adobe Firefly and DALL-E 2. So throughout this presentation, actually, we've got all of the images generated through AI, very, very quick, very, very efficient way of just producing something that's a bit more interesting for this sort of application. And obviously meaning we don't have to go through our own image stocks or stock image creation, that sort of thing. Another application that is quite on the rise at the moment is video creation and editing. And there's a lot of different tools that do quite different things when it comes to video creation. So there are things like Lumen 5 and Flicky, and they can do things like editing existing videos. They can do some generation of videos from scratch as well, and also things like editing scripts. Video creation is something obviously that traditionally is quite skill intensive and time intensive. So even just allowing us to sort of democratize these skills a bit and make them more accessible to people who don't have that experience in video creation is very useful. It really sort of makes it more accessible to people as a platform. And when we think about social media, how that's becoming more video oriented, this is quite good timing, really, because it helps us take capture of those sort of applications. Another application is sort of automation and integrators. So Zapier allows you to basically talk to it and tell it what you want to do, and then it will help you create automations, help you look at your data, basically to answer problems that you have, which again is making it more accessible, easy to use, easy to answer questions. Note takers. So for example, in meetings, much like this one, you could have a tool that transcribes and pulls out insights from it automatically. So that could be used, for example, to follow up on sales inquiries. So you can sort of pick out key moments, actions that you might want to take from a meeting. And also actually, if someone joins late, you can actually talk to a couple of these tools. They have a chat bot that will tell you what's been discussed in the meeting so far. So again, time saving, efficiency, kind of similar themes across these. Project management tools. So for example, ClickUp and Monday.com, we're starting to see generative AI there, helping you brief things into people, helping you manage your tasks.
Oh, we've lost Dom. Is that Dom's problem? It's not. Can everyone else hear me?
We can hear you absolutely
Okay.
fine. I think.
Okay, I'll carry on then, and then hopefully Dom will come back to us at some stage. Okay. So Dom's been talking through some
all your sort of workflows in a sense. And am I back?
We lost you for a moment, Dom. Carry on. Carry on. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So yeah, as I was saying, project management tools, and then also copywriting. So there's a couple of tools, for example, copy.ai and Octopus, which are a bit more specialized in things like ChatGPT, where they're made for marketers. So for example, copy.ai is really good for drafting emails and doing segments of emails, and you can give it copy and it can then create sort of segmented messaging, longer messaging, shorter messaging, really refine that process and make it more time efficient. Octopus, similarly, you can give it details, it can draft different kinds of social posts for you. And key to that, actually, advocacy, which is a big part of Octopus's offering. It can help advocates find different variants of posts that you provide to them. So if they want to change the tone of voice, if they want to make it a bit shorter, a bit longer, they can use AI to do that quickly, which obviously is going to help them share your message, advocate for you, basically removing a barrier there. And then on the analytical side of things, so the stuff that, like I said, happens a bit more in the back end, but is still just as relevant and maybe just as important. So attribution, which we'll come into again, is about how we attribute marketing channels to conversions. So for example, if someone purchases on our website, we want to know what marketing activity then contributed to that person taking that action. And that is something that has evolved, which we'll come back to. Paid media online advertising. This is something that has long been driven by AI, machine learning tech. And that's to make sure that people see ads that are relevant to them, are timely, so they're something that they're going to be interested in now. And obviously on our side as businesses that are selling something, we want to reach the right people at the right time. So those algorithms help us do that. Similar story on social media. When we look at our feed, that is tailored to us. It's tailored based on a lot of signals about how we interact with those platforms, our demographics, how we've interacted with websites, to give us an experience that's personalized for us. And then finally, CRM data. There's tools within HubSpot and Marketo, for example, which helps you clean up your data, follow up on leads, basically manage your database better and make sure it's in good working order, helping you out there with that maintenance side of things. And then Helen, I'll hand back to you if we want to go back to the discussion points.
Yeah, great. Thanks. We've had some discussion. I've asked people to contribute what AI tools they are using. So Stephanie has said Otter AI for meetings, ChatGPT for first drafts of copy, emails, etc. And Nolan has also said Otter as well. I'd love to hear if someone wants to kind of turn them, take themselves off mute and talk through, their AI journey so far, how they decided, for example, to use Otter AI. What made you choose Otter? Stephanie, maybe I can ask you to share your process on finding, choosing, and deploying Otter in your business.
Sure, although I don't know that it was quite that systematic. I think I was one of the first ones that stumbled across it a while ago, this transcription part of it, and then just recently we've had several people on our team, I guess, download the app and have it sync into their Google Teams meetings or their Zoom meetings, and we found it to be really helpful for, like you said, it can summarize as you go, it's transcribing, but some of the new AI features that they've introduced that have been really helpful are pulling out the action items and takeaways from a meeting. And I've been surprised how accurate it is at that, because, sometimes it's very obvious where somebody's made a decision and you're saying, okay, you follow up on this, but it's not always that clear. You're kind of talking around an action item, but nobody ever says specifically what it is. But the Otter's been good about pulling that out. And then we've started using it. I think somebody else said this in the chat, in our sales calls with prospective clients. And I actually thought clients might find it a little weird that there was this black box sort of sitting in the Zoom that's not a real person. But our sales people just explain to them at the beginning of the call and say, I'm using this tool to help me take notes so that I can focus on our conversation and not worry about capturing it, having to write everything down. And they actually think they kind of like that. Like, it's a service we're providing so we can focus on them and, not go off a script or anything like that. So so it's been, I guess, mostly internal usage, and then starting to use it a little bit more for sales calls and other things like that. But I wouldn't say it was a systematic process. It's not like we said, oh, we really need a tool for this, let's go research a bunch of options and then choose one. I think we kind of individually or collectively have stumbled across it, started using it, and then each person sort of figures out what they like or don't like about it and use it accordingly.
Yeah, I think that you've made a good point there, Stephanie. Sometimes it's not a systematic process. Like, if you had to go through a whole process of reviewing all the AI you need and figuring out all the tools and checking out all the tools, by the time you've done that, there's a whole lot of new tools, or the tools have new functionality. So often I think just follow your instincts, follow a good, if someone has a good idea, if you hear a good recommendation or referral from someone, I think just use it. that's really, rather than saying, oh, before we start adopting it, we've got to see what else is out there and try a bunch of things and then make a decision in 3 months. I don't think that's the right way to go about using AI personally. It depends on obviously how much it costs, but you know, the only way you're really going to know if it's going to work is to test it out and to adopt it and start using it. If it's good, you'll have no problem. If it really is a valuable tool, then your business will have no problem adopting it. So I think those, interestingly, the piece around capturing sales conversations and sales calls, for me, what's interesting is to understand how can marketers take all the sales calls from a week, say, for example, and get AI to give them some insight to feedback into their, you know, what content we should be creating for marketing, what are the key messages that our clients or our potential clients are responding to well. There are a lot of different ways in which I think marketing and sales can be better integrated with those types of tools as well. So I'm going to have a look at the comments and see if there's another one we can look at. So Robin, why don't you ask your question, make your comment? Thank you.
I knew you were going to pick on me as soon as I read that. No, it sounds very cynical, but so I've been in a lot of these conversations, a lot of the prep calls, and it does strike me that a lot of the, you know, AI is the kind of buzzword, and a lot of the software examples that we're given, particularly on the analytical side, are marketing software, and you know, to a greater or lesser extent, they're looking to integrate AI to make it more effective, more efficient, more productive, and get a bigger bang for the buck. But ultimately, it's still software. So I just wonder whether, you know, AI is going to be one of those terms which, I'm not disputing the fact that it will be incredibly disruptive and will hopefully change the world for the better. But ultimately, it's a bit like digital marketing. You know, the term digital just sort of slips away, and it's a panacea for, you know, sort of all marketing. So I just wonder whether there are any parallels. For
sure, I think they definitely are. So AI, it's tech, right? It's tech. It's just the more advanced tech. So I know Julian Rose, who's on this call, we've had a debate about this a few months ago when we were looking at building the renewed AI, this renewed series, basically. And ultimately, it's just tech. I think the challenge and the reality is that a lot of marketers or companies who are looking at, you know, their marketing function haven't actually properly adopted even the basic tech that they need to, the traditional tech. So there are some very kind of mainstream, commonly used, not cutting edge anymore, automation functions within some of these tech tools that are very, you know, they're quite rudimentary marketing functionality that a lot of companies aren't using that yet. And it's about, so it's a conversation should be, how are marketers adopting tech? And it doesn't have to be AI. It's just what tech are they adopting to help them be more efficient, more you know, effective, get the right message to the right people at the right time, more effectively at scale. Where AI really does become a game changer is that at scale piece. And that's really going to be a big differentiator between, you know, one marketing function and another. You'll have a marketing function that's not tech enabled or AI enabled, and one that is. And you'll see probably the one that is a lot lighter on marketers needed to do the work. And interestingly, in this series, watching, you know, rewatching the Aon Publishing and the Aon Operations sessions, and if you've joined this session and you haven't watched those two, I'd strongly recommend you do, because there's a lot in those two that's relevant to marketing as well. But what they talked about was the way they both the leaders of the kind of experts on those two sessions, the way they see AI, described AI from kind of a strategic perspective, is it means it's like a junior member of staff. So instead of having to, you know, hire 3 marketing assistants to support your marketing managers get work done, you might only have to hire 1. And then the other 2 will be replaced by AI tools that the marketing managers can then, should be prompting well, directing well, you become an editor rather than a writer, for example. So there's a lot of kind of a large volume of work that used to be very time consuming, that is still very time consuming in businesses, that can now be done by AI. And that's the difference between, say, the MarTech conversation we had a year ago and the MarTech conversation we're having now. I don't know if anyone agrees. So actually I'll take, I'm going to go to the skills section. We're going to cover off the skills, and then we're going to come back to the chat, because there's some interesting things popping up in the chats. And please do add, be controversial, disagree, challenge us, challenge each other. That's what it's all about, really, so that we have a good debate and discussion. So if I go into the skills for AI, so this is really quite a key part of making AI work in your business and tech generally, right? So if we go to Robin's point of, isn't AI just tech? It is, but to make tech, the new tech work, and this is to future-proof your marketing function, I wouldn't, encourage you to, I'd encourage you to support and enable your marketers to gain these skills, rather than fire your whole marketing team because they don't have these skills, or half your marketing team because they don't have these skills, right? That's not the, it's as I say, a fast evolution or a slow revolution, where there is time to acquire the skills that are needed, and there is actually an awful lot of information out there on the web that will enable people to acquire these skills. So for example, HubSpot, when they launch their AI functionality, or the traditional AI they've got in this tool around automation, they offer free videos, free training for anyone to go and consume, so they can use not only the HubSpot tool better, but use those concepts in any MarTech tool. So it really is democratized. It is really up to companies and individuals how much effort they want to put into learning what these tools are and what their applications are and how to use them. Where the big step changes in the AI skills is really this kind of move towards critical thinking, creative vision, knowing what questions to ask, knowing how to evaluate work that another person or a tool has created, rather than creating it yourself from scratch, or that being a very time-consuming effort. So actually what marketers need to be now is better strategic thinkers. They need to be better, better planners, better strategic thinkers, better organizers of tools and people, and how tools and people interact. So all those soft skills around stakeholder management, around communication, those become even more important for marketers, because that's what they need, those skills to enable them to make the most of the tools that are available. So marketers don't become more robotic because the robots are doing the job. It's the opposite. Marketers need to really understand the robots, but they need to be anything but robotic to be influential in their businesses, and they need to add value by having the creative vision about what's possible, really thinking out of the box about where an AI application could help them achieve the objective or help the business succeed. So you'll see there also we have a point around becoming better editors. So point 4 is about prompting and driving AI tools. That's essentially the briefing process. So before, when you might have used many hours of designer's time, if you were really good, a marketer who's very good at briefing a designer, telling them exactly what you were looking for, clear on your objectives, clear on the output you needed, didn't change your mind 17 times, you'd probably have a designer who produced a good piece of design quite quickly for you, right? And it wouldn't take days and days and going around in circles and frustration and, lots and lots of money spent on a designer who kept having to change the design because the brief wasn't good. So a marketer who knows what the objective is, who's clear on what they want, who's able to prompt well, essentially brief a tool. Prompting is a tool, is briefing the tool about what you want, means that that skill, and that's not an easy skill. I mean, I know from experience of having worked with marketing teams over 25 years and built marketing teams and trained marketers and have been trained by marketers, briefing good briefs, training marketers to give good briefs to copywriters, to designers, to marketing assistants, to content creators is probably one of the most difficult things to do. So that, and again, but I think prompting AI tools, training marketers to prompt AI tools is going to be a lot quicker and easier, because you can do trial and error at speed. There's no, you're not creating a huge amount of expense and cost and distraction for lots of people by having your briefs rejected or having to train your marketers to do good briefs with lots and lots of people involved. The prompting can be done through trial and error at speed with multiple different tools at very low cost. So that should be a lot easier to train your marketers. I think what's going to be harder is enabling them and giving them permission and raising their expectations on what you expect them to do in terms of critical and strategic thinking and creative problem solving. Not being creative in terms of creating beautiful design, being creative in terms of creative problem solving and creative strategizing. And then the editing piece is the other important piece here that came through in the other roundtables as well, where marketers who know how to edit a piece of copy well, or know how to kind of feed back to get the right outcome from a piece of copy, are your valuable marketers. Not the ones who know how just, anyone who writes copy from scratch based on a brief is going to be replaced by, or has already been replaced by AI. So those are kind of the key skills. There are challenges around encouraging marketers to take on, to adapt their skills, to step up, to do things that are less formulaic, that are less process driven, essentially, which is low value work. So how do you enable and encourage them to step up into that kind of more strategic, valuable space is the big question for marketing leaders. I'm going to go to the chat now because there's a lot in there to look at and I have to read quickly. I'm going to have a look at who's contributed. So Matthew, you've added a few comments to the chat. Would you like to share your take on a couple of the comments you've made for us? Matthew, has he heard me? Not sure. Okay, no. Okay, what about Ed? Would you like to, can I call on Ed to contribute, and then maybe RD Whitney can share your thoughts. So Ed Coburn.
Yes, hello.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was trying to get to my unmute button. Yeah, I just, as I noted in the comments, I think, to a very large extent, we won't appreciate the full benefit of these tools until they're fully built in. Like Otter, people have to use a separate tool to transcribe and summarize things. Some people will do that, but when Zoom and like Microsoft Teams, why doesn't it already have that functionality built in? Once it's built in, that's when the tools will when AI will really become useful. When it's not, and I think this is really adding on to your point, Robin, earlier, that things become mainstream when they become invisible. I was publishing publications about artificial intelligence 35 years ago, and many of the things we were talking about now exist in my iPhone, and they're used ubiquitously because people have no idea what the technology is behind and don't care. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I do think, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge with web pages because so many websites are built in WordPress. I think open source software may find it challenging to be competitive. I think about us recently, in the past year or so, we've moved from a WordPress website to using something called Brightspot, which is a great CMS tool that we found. But the advantage of it is there's something that you can just easily sort of build automation into, whereas open source software, I think, is a little harder. So it's going to be interesting to see, I think, how that plays out. I have no doubt people will figure it out, but I think the proprietary tools will get there first because it's just easier. Anyway, so that was my only it wasn't really a question, just sort of my take and observation on this. So
thanks, Ed. I think what we probably see in the tech space is a bit of consolidation, the same way as the event tech. The traditional platforms like, Zoom, I can't remember the exact examples, we're buying up online event tech. So, you might have Zoom buying Otter, for example. So hopefully fewer tools to have to deal with. We can just have 2 or 3 that we deal with, and they have everything in them that we need, and you don't have to integrate 17 different things. From a marketing perspective, that there's so much complexity when we go in and we do a lot of work reviewing tech stacks and reviewing data sets and reviewing how data flows through the tech to get the customer journey working, to get the sales and marketing teams working as they should. And it's really complex out there in terms of, there's certainly, I think over the next couple of years, and we've already seen some streamlining, we've already seen some more open tech, open APIs and things that make it a lot easier than it was even 2 years ago. But that, that's all. There needs to be a recognition that this tech element of marketing and the data-driven nature of the marketing, especially in the industries we work in, in the companies we work in, where we have large data sets of really large audiences, it's quite an unusual industry for marketers to be involved in. If you're a marketer for like a law firm, you might just be dealing with your clients and then a prospect list of potential clients. That would be it. That would be your data set. There might be 2, for a medium-sized law firm, you might have, 5,000 records at a time to deal with. Marketers in our industry have to deal with data files and data sets of hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of records, and they have to do marketing at scale to these records. So having the right tech and data in place and having the right kind of support and knowledge and skills and resources and investment in that tech and data is so much more critical for marketers in B2B media and events and intelligence businesses than it is in other types of B2B businesses. So, and I think in our space, we've got, again, so many tools because there's so many tech providers who recognize that need in this industry, but there's certainly, it would help if there was some consolidation without creating monopolies, of course.
We to your point about tech stack, a year ago we had one central tech stack that leaned heavily on one provider for about 80% of our tech, and which made life simple. The challenge is the ability of one provider to maintain best-in-class functionality is really limited. So, we swung the other way, but now we're dealing with, much more integration issues and more people to talk to. And I do think you're right that we're seeing an explosion now. I think there will be consolidation as Zoom buys things and Microsoft buys things, and things will get recombined to some extent so that we won't have to be dealing with as many tools. I don't mind dealing with more than one, because I do think when you put all your eggs in one tech basket, you lose leverage with that provider. But you want 3, maybe 5, not 27. That's just overwhelming. So.
I'm going to ask Magda on Team MPG. Magda, what would you say is the average number of MarTech tools that we're seeing in a kind of a good tech stack these days, a optimized tech stack?
It does vary quite a lot, I think. I think, I'm definitely very much actually in line with what Ed is saying. Something that's along the lines of maybe 5, 6 kind of tools, rather than a much larger amount, is probably where we see marketers being more effective and efficient, with very large and complicated tech stacks. Often there is a lot of requirement for integration, and a lot of the time that integrations might not be happening or might not be doing what the marketers need them to do in practical terms. And on occasion, depending on the type of organizations, the much simpler tech stacks using, 1, 2, or 3 tools may also be effective. But yeah, I think, I don't know if that answers your question, Helen, but.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Okay. Adi, do you want to contribute your thought?
Sure. I was just, I like Ed's shirt, by the way. I would just want to make a point, like sort of the practical implications of all this right now. You know, we can use it for copy. There's some, automation things we can use it for. But just as marketers in running communities, it makes you think of like, what are the practical implications? One is being on top of this for your own community. So I help run a community of CFOs for the Coopers, for the Chief Executive Group. And, of course, CFOs are definitely, watching this, using it in their finance. So we need to stay on top of that and then bring that back as marketers. Like that's the old newsletter business, right? That's just keeping them up to date on things that are changing, like when the internet came along. But also it just really points out the number one benefit by far in our membership is our peer-to-peer listserv, like peers asking peers questions, not peers asking AI questions that, is data that's a year ago. It's peers asking peers questions when they're facing a challenging decision. So we as marketers can, take advantage of all this AI noise too, and really play that up about the authenticity of our community. I think is really a powerful benefit.
Yeah, completely agree. Thanks so much, Adi. So what we'll do now, if that's okay with everyone, is we'll go into just quickly show you some of the practical applications examples. We only have 12 minutes left. So Dom is going to do a whistle-stop tour through this, and then we'll look at kind of what's coming up. So we're going to kind of change the topic now, and we're going to look at attribution in AI with AI tools.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. So as I mentioned earlier, this is something we come back to. It's something that I think is quite useful and important to know about in isolation, but I think it's also quite a good example of how AI is working for us across marketing, how it's developing. So when we think about attribution, we're talking about, like I said, if someone has bought something from us, or they've completed a lead form on our website, or they've attended our event, whatever it is, we want to know what parts of our marketing got them to that point. What was valuable in pushing them down the funnel and getting them to make that action? So traditionally, obviously, we may have had to go straight to the audience for that. We may have had to ask them, what was it in our marketing that worked? What was convincing you to come to our event, to buy our product, surveys, that kind of thing. When we digitized, obviously, we got a much more holistic view and a much more automated view. So we had all of the data accessible via our website, and we could see, okay, things like organic search, for example, that's where people are coming from. That's where they're coming from when they purchase something. Maybe it's email, maybe it's social. But the limitation from that is, by default, that was just looking at the last touch point. So it was the last action that people were taking before they were taking that action that is valuable to us. So obviously that's quite a limited view when you want to see what else the marketing before that throughout the whole funnel is doing. So something that Google has started pushing a lot more now is data-driven attribution, which is sort of an AI-enabled version of attribution where it looks at that whole customer journey and it considers how much each touch point contributed. So for example, social media, it might have a minimal impact, but it may still be doing something. It may be getting people aware of the brand, aware of the product, getting them to the website in the first place. And then it might be email later on that is sort of pushing people to make that final step. So it divides up the conversion between these different touch points, which gives us a much more accurate view of what our marketing is doing. And this is something that was possible to do in that sort of middle step when we had access to the online analytics, but it's something that you would have had to do manually. So you would have had to look through your data, and you would have had to look where people are engaging and interacting and dropping off and then coming back. So it's saving us time. It's giving us insights that we can then make actions on. And it's giving us just a much more sophisticated view very, very quickly, which, like I said, is quite a good summary of how AI is working across marketing, really, across tools for us. So this, I think, is a really just visual, stark example of what AI can do, this time in the image generation department. So what you're looking at here is the image within the green rectangle. that is the original photo. This is from our round table that we recently held. And the image outside is actually fully AI generated. Like that doesn't exist. That is generated by AI to expand this image, make it bigger. It's read what's inside the image and it's used that information to expand it. And this is something that took literally 2 minutes. You just expand the selection, click a button, it does it for you. It's not perfect. If you look at it, you scrutinize it, you'll spot little details, but it is something that you can go in and refine. And traditionally, doing this in Photoshop without AI this would take days, if not more, to get this level of quality and photorealism. So I think this is an example of just how far and how quickly AI has come in certain applications like this image generation to be able to produce something this convincing.
Yeah, and I think I was just going to jump in. I think non-marketers shouldn't underestimate how important this is to marketers in terms of creating images, design that all their stakeholders are going to find at an acceptable level. It's a really difficult thing to do if you have a limited number of images, for example, to work with, or a limited budget, to try and come up with some good looking social posts, some really great imagery for websites, etc. This does show inaccuracy though, if we just point out, so Alicia, who's on this call, pointed out, Alicia's in this photo, she was saying she was not wearing shoes like that on that day. So it's clearly very inaccurate AI, but a minor detail, but one that obviously is important to note in terms of accuracy. So I'm going to move forward, Dom. What we'll do is we'll share these slides afterwards, but the point being that something that might have taken hours, days previously, and very little ability to be agile in terms of testing different looks, etc., is now taking kind of 5 minutes at a cost of a license that's only £240 per annum for 2 users. So you can see the cost is minimal, the time saving huge, and the skills needed is that kind of creative prompting, the technical side of things. In the interest of time, and to come back to some questions again, if you could just have a look at the slides afterwards, we'll share them, but here's some examples of specific tools that are used to achieve certain things around copywriting, around getting insight on email campaigns, email lists, etc. And then if we can focus now on what's coming up. So we've just added a few things here that we've noted are being promised to marketers in terms of Google Bard and Bing AI around PPC and SEO. Very relevant for content marketing to know that AI might actually disrupt SEO in a huge way, because people won't be getting lists of search results anymore, or an easy way to find where the information came from. They'll just be given kind of ready baked answers by AI. That means they don't have to go and look on a bunch of websites for answers. So if your whole strategy is based on search engine optimization and you haven't looked at the other channels, I'd be worried if I were you, because there is a big risk here. So this is one of the reasons why your marketing has to be multi-channel. Look at email, social media, PPC, SEO, not only to be impactful, but also to be kind of future-proofed. And PPC actually is a tool that's becoming a lot more targeted and smarter. And we're seeing much better results from PPC since Google built in the AI functionality there. Obviously, it's all engineered by Google to make sure that we have to spend money on PPC because their SEO isn't working anymore. Very cynical, but there you go. And there's some other points around large language models. We'd like you to take the survey if you could. We've got 5 minutes left. So this is a quick survey. It'll take you no more than 10 minutes. And all of those who complete the survey today, it really is a quick one. You can, someone's going to put the link in the chat for us. There it is. So the link's in the chat. If you could please complete the survey, and then we'll share those results with you, and we're going to run it for a bit longer and share some more results with you later. And then to finish off before we go for final discussion, just to share that we have this guidance for marketing leaders and people who are tasked with enabling marketing functions, so business leaders, for example. I've stolen a few ideas from the previous AI roundtables, which is create roadmaps, make sure you understand what you want to do, have visibility of those, and experiment as well and give your team guidelines. What this all comes down to, though, fundamentally at the most basic level, is you need to have a marketing strategy to inform what AI tools you use to inform your objectives, to inform who you want to reach, and then how you reach them. The roadmap needs to be informed by marketing strategy. So we recommend you invest in that first, spend some time on that, and then create your roadmap. Don't let the tail wag the dog, so to speak. Is there anyone else? We've got a few more minutes, conscious that there might be some people who want to contribute more. Maybe, I don't know, MPG people, if there's anything we haven't shared that you think is particularly important. No? Okay, I think it's all in the slides that we all put together. Is there anything anyone else from in terms of participants wants to share? So Matthew, maybe you want to share your view on we've got, sorry, only 3 minutes, but on where SEO fits into your marketing strategies these days and the slow death predicted.
It's making a big difference in marketing copy for the events that I'm producing. And I'm noticing that the response on the part of clients is they love it. They're really excited about the new ideas, and it's providing those people who are envisioning old events that they've done a million times with, I want to say, fresher language that varies. You can vary it by your prompting. So the way you prompt the AI can really change the way the marketing copy you get. So you can spend your time editing marketing copy and rewriting marketing copy and polishing, and not just spending hours generating something that people invest a lot in emotionally, and then it gets torn apart. What's great about it is that kind of investment that you put in at the beginning is lighter, so you spend your investment in the honing of the language you use rather than the initial iteration. And I think that makes a huge difference in motivation to get creative, ability to tackle bigger issues, and the ability to just fundamentally move on so that you get a little bit more in depth with what you're trying to achieve and what you can achieve.
Excellent, thank you. That's such an interesting contribution. Thank you, Matthew. It all comes down to really marketers changing mindsets, behaviors, skill sets, because these tools do, they are quite groundbreaking in terms of game changing, in terms of what's possible. The way a market, maybe someone from Robin's perspective will go, well, it's just tech, right? But for someone who is a marketer, this really changes how they do their jobs, and therefore the kinds of marketers you hire, the way you kind of think about what's possible in terms of what the marketing function can produce, how the marketing team and function can support the business in a more kind of strategic commercial level, rather than just spending all their time, doing quite rote tasks, which tends to, happen quite a lot. That is pretty game changing in terms of how a business can then move forward with that more valuable marketing contribution. Is there anything else anyone wants to add before we wrap up? So I think we're on time, so we'll wrap up. Thank you very much for everyone who contributed. We had some really interesting questions and contributions. Thanks to Team MPG, and thank you very much to Sue and Renewed for hosting us.
Well, thank you, Helen, and thank you everyone at MPG for joining us today. We really do appreciate everyone's time and MPG's time. A reminder that we'll be sending you an email with a link of today's recording, and that you can share that once it's available. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.